See fall days ahead. And while you're at it, don't miss out on our fantastic fall special. Enjoy 10% off syrups and spices, perfect for autumn recipes. Southern Ledge Pools and Patios, 306 East Main Cross in Taylorville.
Your information station, WTIM.
It is time now for the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Tim Zalabak, your host, and thanks so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. Very happy to have back on the line today with us Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District. How are you this morning, Senator McClure?
I'm well. Great to be with you.
Great to have you back on the line with us and back on the WTIM Morning Show. Plenty of things to get through in this morning show this morning. Recent findings and a recent audit to DCFS Illinois. Let's get into this a little bit. What was found, and then where do we go from here?
So there have been investigations into a facility in Chicago called Aunt Martha's, where DCFS has sent quite a few kids over the years. And the previous director of DCFS, Mark Smith, worked there. And there have been multiple media outlets that have investigated this place and found that kids were abused at that facility. And ever since that has come out, DCFS has tried to backdate some documents to try to cover up some of the allegations and some of the abuse. And so myself and my colleagues that are in the Republican caucus in the Senate are calling for an independent investigation and audit of DCFS's relationship with Aunt Martha's. And it's very, very troubling, especially when we've got a massive amount of kids coming into care. We would never want these kids that have already faced abuse or neglect to now face further abuse and neglect in the hands of DCFS once they've been sent to this facility.
My goodness, it's an unbelievable story that's being uncovered right there. Was this brought up by a constituent, by a DCFS staff member? Do you have any idea of that?
No, this was actually brought to my attention because of a group called Justice Watch who broke the story and then did kind of an investigative piece on it. And so I read that. The caucus members who have all asked for this audit also read that report, and it's very troubling. And there's also been a couple of staff members there, by the way, that have been charged with crimes, including sexual assault.
Wow.
And so we've got to get to the bottom of this. And, the facility has received more than $7.3 million in taxpayer funds since 2022. And so, and many of these funds, by the way, came after the first complaint was already out there in 2022. So, how can DCFS in our state, Pritzker's administration, keep giving money when there's serious allegations out there? And also, why on earth would they send more kids there when there are serious allegations out there? I mean, to me, allegations come out, you investigate those allegations before anything else happens. Instead, the Pritzker administration just turned a blind eye, kept pumping in funds there, and then sent more kids there. And guess what? They were abused.
Wow. Exact wording I was about to use when it was back to me there. Sounds like some entity turned a blind eye there. You mentioned this is really being spearheaded by members of the Republican caucus. Anyone on the other side of the aisle that's also in these conversations?
Not yet, but, we're going to be back in veto session in November, and then we're going to have a spring session. And there's a DCFS working group that meets. It's a bipartisan group that contains members of the House and Senate from each caucus, and I hope that we will be able to investigate these allegations further as a part of that. I serve on that, and so we'll see. But I can't imagine that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle aren't also outraged by these horrible allegations.
Absolutely. And do you think there's going to be any problem with transparency throughout this process? Is there going to try to be, you already mentioned there have been cover-ups in the past, and going from here, I feel like some entity is trying to, again, cover up for what's been happening.
I do fear that, and that's why it should be the independent inspector general who performs the audit here, because political folks like myself, we just don't have the same powers that the inspector general has. And so it's got to be someone that can subpoena and get information. And also, it's got to be somebody that's got some real weight. I don't want anybody to think that an investigation into this would be political. It should be somebody that's independent. And so that's why the Inspector General is the perfect position to go after this.
Absolutely. And words from the Inspector General as of yet, if you haven't mentioned that?
Not yet. We're filing a resolution that calls for this independent audit. And so I think once that is in the system here, and then can hopefully get an up or down vote in the Senate, I think it's then appropriate, not for the Inspector General to comment, but just for the Inspector General to take action.
Sure. So any wrap-up words, Senator McClure, for this first conversation, DCFS, Chicago, and DCFS as a whole in Illinois, and we'll just be waiting for updates as they come to us as this investigation continues.
Well, this is just one location that kids were sent to. My concern is not just this location, but what other locations in the state could possibly have been abusive towards kids. And so that's something that maybe an audit of this particular relationship between the state and Aunt Martha's will uncover even more troubling issues. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. The investigation is needed to find out if there is more to be uncovered there, but obviously hoping that just Aunt Martha's was the only negative case in that whole thing. A pretty unbelievable story that we will continue to track here with Senator Steve McClure on the morning show here. He's of the 54th District Senator. Of course, the presidential election is nearing. It seems as both candidates are on the media blitz, reaching into both sides and on podcasts, and so many things are being thrown out right now. Where's your mind at during this entire process?
Well, I'm monitoring it very closely, and one of the big issues in our state, of course, is non-citizens that have been flooding our state, and Governor Pritzker's been giving them a lot of money, free health care, and, the people that I represent are asking me, well, wait a second, why do these people that are citizens of other countries getting free health care when I've got to pay for my health care? Things like that. And so the presidential race is really the only way to try to make sure our borders are secure and make sure that people that are criminals, people that shouldn't be here, the non-citizens flooding our state can actually be taken back to their respective countries.
Yeah.
Because we just cannot afford to have these people coming into here. We don't have the resources. We don't have the money.
Sure.
And we've got enough in our state that's lacking right now to where our citizens feel like they're not getting services, let alone citizens of other countries. And so I'm paying very close attention to the race. And early on, I would say about as much as early as a month ago, there was a lot of criticism for President Trump because he was putting ads in the battleground states that were just basically having Kamala Harris speak for herself in clips, and she's made some very outlandish and ridiculous statements, and so President Trump was just sort of hitting her on those statements, and then those were taking up much of the ads. Well, he was criticized for that because they said, no, you need to be talking about cost of living and the economy, etc. Except for the fact that if you look at the polling, even when we're in polls where Harris is slightly ahead of President Trump, he is always seen as the better candidate to deal with the cost of living and deal with the economy and also to deal with immigration. And those are typically 3 of the 4 top issues in the on the public's mind right now.
Yeah.
And so he was smart to say that, okay, well, the public's pretty much already made their mind up about me, because for President Trump, people either love him or hate him, and nobody's going to change their mind about that between now and the election day. And people have decided that he's the one that could better handle the most important issues in the country.
Yeah.
Instead, the media has allowed for Kamala Harris in large part to just be unchecked, and they've been touting her and talking about how wonderful she is. So I think President Trump's strategy of basically just letting the people of the battleground states know like what she's actually said was a brilliant strategy, because now it looks like he's the favorite to win. If you look at the betting market, President Trump is favored in all of them. And if you look at the Real Clear Politics average, when they look at the average of polls in each of the battleground states, he is now projected to win the Electoral College at this time. So his strategy of essentially getting around the media by directly going to the voters and saying, this is exactly who Kamala Harris is, seems to have been working. And now Kamala Harris wants to do all kinds of new interviews to try to turn these numbers around. And it seems like every interview she does, she seems to dig herself deeper into a ditch. I mean, she was on The View and she was asked whether or not she would have done anything different over the last 3 years that Joe Biden's been president. She said no, she wouldn't. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just obvious that things need to be this is a change election. Things need to change. And Kamala Harris is basically saying, vote for me and things will stay exactly the same. And that's not what the American people want to hear.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to watch that. One inquiry I had at the beginning of that conversation, speaking on Illinois non-citizens and healthcare. The only reason that I'm read up on this is because of the hurricane relief and all of that. In FEMA, is there a FEMA fund that specifically caters to non-citizen healthcare? Is that where Illinois pulls those funds from, or is it from somewhere different?
No, it's all from state funds.
Wow. Okay.
Totally from state funds. And not only is that a big issue here, but you talk about FEMA, and a lot of people are waiting on hurricane relief funds, and they're told you've got to wait or you're not eligible. Meanwhile, FEMA has spent a ton of money on non-citizens. It's all from the same pool of funds. The federal money that we're seeing out there, we've got one pile of money at the federal level, and that's divided out however it's divided by Congress and by the Senate and by the president. And, if you take out money and you give it to non-citizens, well, that money is gone now. So you've got to go back to that same pool and try to find money for hurricane relief, except for the fact that the money's gone because they've been paying it to non-citizens. It's unbelievable. But the fact is that both at the state level right now and at the federal level, our U.S. citizens are being treated as second-class citizens, and the priority is people from other countries whom they want to give money to. And in the state of Illinois, they don't just get free health care. They're getting link cards. They're getting really just wads of cash that all of us are paying for. And someone might say to themselves, well, why would they prioritize non-citizens over our citizens? And the answer is because Governor Pritzker and the Democratic Party wants these people to vote. And when they can vote, he then wants to say, hey, look, I'm the one that gave you thousands of dollars in free health care, et cetera. So this is all about voting. And that's why it is so important for President Trump to win, because I believe he'll put a stop to it.
Absolutely. Presidential election less than a month away. All of these topics are becoming more and more important. We have Senator Steve McClure on our morning show of the 54th District, Illinois State Senator. We're happy to have him back on this morning show. We thank our sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. You're listening to WTIM, your information station, and we'll be right back.
Your information station, WTIM.
Are you passionate about making a difference in the lives of children? This is Amanda Miller, the Director of Human Resources at Kimmer Village.
We are hiring residential techs now to join our dedicated team. This is Shala Snagel, Executive Director of Kimmer Village. Residential techs support and care for youth in our program.
We're looking for compassionate individuals ready to inspire and uplift. We offer an amazing benefits package and great starting pay. If you're ready to make an impact, apply today at kimmervillage.org.
Could you use some extra cash in your savings account? Then you need to sign up for the People's Bank and Trust Save by Spending Roundup program. I'm Nicole Maloli from People's Bank and Trust. Simply use your debit card like you always do, and we will round up your purchase to the next dollar. The extra change is then transferred to your savings account. There's never been an easier way to save. Call 888-PBT-1954 today to find out more. People's Bank and Trust, we put you and your savings first. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
If you're 40 and over, you'll recognize these artists by their first names: Frank, Dean, Sammy, Andy, Nat, Diana, Michael. Well, here's the big news. You can now hear Central Illinois' largest music library with over 3,500 songs on air and online at 965thechill.com. Tune in on the FM dial in Christian County and on your computer or smartphone. Hear these great artists and many more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 965thechill.com.
Seeing is believing, and your new customers can now hear and see your message. Deliver your message on our 6 Miller Media Group radio stations. And now, potential customers will see your message on our new 36 by 72-inch two-sided electronic sign installed in front of our Taylorville studios on Illinois Route 29. You have the opportunity of having your message seen by over 11,200 drivers a day. Contact your Miller Media Group account manager today and deliver your message through your potential customers' ears and eyes.
Making radio and our digital platforms work for my clients is fun. I'm Teresa Nelson, an account manager with the Miller Media Group. With nearly 30 years of media experience, I've made advertising media sales a great career. We have an opportunity for one person to join us. If you think you have what it takes to be successful in a fast-paced business and enjoy challenges, you might be the person we're looking for. One thing's for sure, there is never a dull moment in a radio station. Send us your resume for a first interview to sales@randyradio.com. We're an equal opportunity employer.
Small towns are in, and Taylorville is poised for you and your family to join them. Taylorville has what you're looking for. Find out more, including upcoming events, by clicking the Small Town Taylorville icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
With over 8 hours a day of agriculture programming weekdays and 2 hours on Saturdays, WTIM AM, FM, and online is your ag information station. Listen by tuning in on air or online, and listen to WTIM Ag podcasts anytime.
Your information station, WTIM.
And welcome back into the WTIM Morning Show. Thanks so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. On the phone line, Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District. Quick second half for us in this one. We have veto session, lame duck sessions upcoming. Senator McClure, what do we hope to accomplish at these?
Well, veto session is in November, and one of the things that will be done in veto session is that the Senate Republicans will vote internally on our leader. The Senate Democrats will vote internally on the Senate president, which I suspect that will be Don Harmon again.
Okay.
And then we're supposed to at that time take up any bills that the governor has vetoed. Well, as you can imagine, with Democrats having super majorities of both houses, there aren't many things to veto. I know that Chicago has been asking us to take up their financial mess. They would love for us to do it in veto session or in January, but they're begging for us to do it as soon as possible. And for those of the listeners that have not been paying attention, so the mayor of Chicago just spent $80,000 on a brand new office renovation for his wife. And on top of that, he went to London to go to the Chicago Bears game in London, but he claimed he was there for economic advantages for the Chicago area, to try to negotiate with people in London, to try to get some businesses to move there, etc. So in other words, I assume the taxpayers of Chicago foot the bill for that. So the question I would have for the mayor of Chicago, if it's such an emergency, if you're so broke, why on earth are you spending so much money on a new office for your wife and a trip to London on the taxpayer dime? So, we'll see if anything is done about the Chicago issues in November or in the lame duck session in January. But that's kind of one of the big controversial topics that may or may not be taken up.
Yeah,
and then after the sorry,
you keep going there. We got 30 seconds left.
Sure. So after the veto session, we'll have a lame duck session most likely, and that's after the election, but before the new people have been sworn in to office. And so you've got a lot of people that have lost their bid for re-election or that have retired that will be able to vote one last time for just a few days. And guess what? The absolute worst bills we've ever passed in the Senate are usually called during that session. So watch out for that session.
We've talked that lame duck session before, and we're wishing you the best of luck out there. And Senator McClure, I think the next time we speak, the presidential election will have passed, so we'll have some different things to talk about, but we always appreciate you taking the time and speaking to our listeners today.
Always great to be with you.
Awesome. Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District right here on our WTIM Morning Show. You've been listening to WTIM, your information station.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelbyville, 107.9 W300 EH Payne and Nokomis.
Increasing pressure on the Israeli government to address the worst